Rooster, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, dude.
Looking dapper with the glasses today.
I just moved into the new house.
It
Life
looks nice. I
is,
like the curtains.
yeah, this is new. Sorry, trying to find out where they are. This is new.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
great. It looks beautiful. Looks beautiful.
yeah, thanks, man. So we're talking to Brian Kelsey today.
Yeah. This is a guy that is this is a no bullshit guy. This is a guy that'll tell you the truth, even if it hurts. And he is a shrewd business mind, and I think he's going to share some business tips today.
Yeah, what I like about Brian, I've known Brian for a while. What I like about Brian is he's cut from the same cloth, right? He's got this corporate background. He's got a really interesting corporate background. It's kind of unusual for corporate people. But he's got that. He's got a wife who's an entrepreneur selling on Amazon. He's very data analytics focused. The thing I think is most surprising is when he got into Amazon. It's like 2018 timeframe.
Yeah,
right?
he's late bloomer.
Yeah, he hasn't been around since 2011 or 15, right? When things were great. But he's killing it. I think
But
last
that's
year.
kind of good though. That's kind of good though, because he didn't come around when you were getting lucky breaks. You know, he's kind of after the lucky breaks.
Well, it's funny. So like, if you think about this guy, so Brian's got this background, which, we'll learn more about here in a minute. He's got this background. It's in kind of corporate. He manages a candle brand. We've managed a candle brand. You and I have. We know what that is. It's 5 keywords on this product. Yep. So like execution and knowing what you're going to go for and how you're going to go after it, all these things. Very data-driven guy. And so I'm really excited to hear, like, and share, like, even with the group, is like, what is his approach to being successful on Amazon?
Well, let's just do it. Let's jump in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome aboard, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, good to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you here, man. This is going to be a really, really interesting talk.
I love it. I even picked out a nice background for you guys.
I was telling Ian, because we were at the MDS event in Las Vegas, and you were telling your story about like where you grew up and everything. And I was like, before you jumped on the call, I was like, man, he's a full-on hippie. Like, he really is a hippie. And your background is validating that. So thank you.
Totally validating it.
Right. There's a kind of a funny story there. And when I started to public speak and tell a little bit about my Amazon journey or talk technical tricks and stuff like that, I was putting together a presentation, and my wife said, "Hey, how come you haven't told them like about your personal history?" And I've always kept that private because it starts to get into the gray space of religious conviction and where everybody comes from and beliefs and stuff like that. But my story was pretty unique in that they developed a Netflix miniseries about it. And it was about me growing up in a religious commune as a child. And I turned out great. It was a great experience for me, but a lot of people did not have a great experience. And so my wife's like, you got to put that in the presentation. And when I put that in the presentation in New York City, I looked out in the audience and I could see a little bit of the older generation, the young kids. They're like, what's he talking about? But the older adults in the room were like, whoa, like, yeah, I watched that thing on Netflix. And I got more questions after my presentation about me growing up in a religious commune which I call a cult, than I did about my presentation about Amazon stuff. So yeah, I grew up a hippie for sure.
Yeah.
Well, no longer a hippie in my eyes, but that's fine. I mean, maybe there's some hippie left in you, but to me, you just seem like just a really smart dude, data-driven guy, brilliant at e-commerce. So let's get into it. I want to find out from you what's the origin story of Brian getting into the e-commerce space. What's Brian pre-e-commerce look like?
Yeah, so leaving that commune and growing up with a bunch of hippies, I was lucky enough to have a mentor that was a senior design engineer for Dolby Laboratories. And he kind of showed me as a young teen, like, hey, if you're going to fit into the Western culture, take these Eastern culture beliefs, but go be successful in the West. And that is go to school, learn, get a job and just don't turn out to be the family with 2.5 kids and a white picket fence, right? So I really put my head down and immersed myself in school and entrepreneurship, and was blessed to go to work with a audio company as I got inspired by the audio things that I've learned in my teenage years. And I started as a marketing communications manager, became the marketing manager, became the sales manager, the domestic sales manager, the international sales manager, and eventually the senior vice president of sales. And that company went public. And at that time, I was 25 years old, managing about $100 million of sales in about 40 different countries. And so my pre-Amazon experiences really surround corporate commerce and leading teams and doing those things. And it wasn't until kind of present day that I realized that there was a big value there in e-commerce, because what I see happening here in the space that we're all talking about is that, I don't want to call everybody lucky millionaires, but you got a lot of people out there that don't have a lot of business experience, and they hit it big in 2017 on Amazon, and they're not sure why, and they're looking to level up and they're not sure how. And so some of those pre-Amazon experiences really prepared me for what I do now. And coming into Amazon, I had sold my business. I had a business in marine audio. We sold those really cool wakeboard tower speakers. We designed them all ourselves and had them made in China. I've been traveling to China since 1991, so you can understand my gray hair now. And so I've seen China grow up over the years, and I actually had my daughter focus on Chinese. She's been doing that for the last 18 years, and she's now at University of Hawaii finishing her degree in Chinese, because I saw the kind of the wave of China coming. And so leaving the corporate life, I started my own business. I sold my business, I think it was 2018. I got married, and my wife's business was in organic skincare, and she sold on Amazon. And she was one of those people that I would call like the lucky millionaire. Like, she had these product ideas, and bless her heart, she actually figured out how to scale her business, and leaving, a kitchen laboratory, and scaled her business up to 18 part-time moms working for her in a 12,000 square foot manufacturing facility. And I entered that picture and went, wow, this is really cool. Like, tell me about your business. I've always been kind of a student of business. I'm infatuated with learning how other people run things. And so that was my entry into the Amazon space. And then from there, it gets complicated.
I love the ending there. So you married into it.
Yeah, pretty much married into it. And really what happened is that I took my big corporate background and kind of applied it to the small business mindset, and helped her kind of restructure her business and look at, so specifically, she was doing a lot of manual labor. She's building everything in the US, and spending lots on payroll, and trying to work on how you increase your efficiencies. And that answer is you need to automate. And so we looked at the catalog of products, and I know that Drew comes from a corporate background, and it's the 80-20 rule of product sales, that 80% of your product sales are 20% of the catalog. And we did that, that analysis and the SWOT analysis, and looked at what needs to go and how we could change her business, and took an SBA loan and brought in a couple $100,000 worth of manufacturing equipment. And overnight, her business changed. And we went from doing lots of hand ad operations to high speed filling. And so that is that skincare brand now today. And so on the skincare brand, we manufacture everything ourselves, and we private label for other people, and we 3PL for people, because she's got that big warehouse. And we've optimized that business to be an Amazon, I don't want to say Amazon only business, but primarily an Amazon on business. And then from there, what we did is we took a look at our labor pool, and I said to her, hey, how can we pivot and kind of grow our business? And by using some data analytics, we looked at the different spaces out there, and we wanted to stay away from the supplements, and we wanted to stay away from the, the home and housewares. We wanted to stay away from these mega categories that we all know. And we decided to create a brand that was going to be based on two things. One, it sounds a bit goofy to say, but bringing products that make people happy, and that turned out to be candles. And so bringing happiness to people, I thought was a good validation. And then combining it with our skincare products. And so a lot of what we sell are spa boxes for women, where we combine candles and spa products, and they bring happiness to people. And we did that when COVID started, not to date ourselves too much, but when there was a lot of unhappiness in the world, we looked at pivoting what we had grown on the skincare side and coming out with that candle brand to launch the second business. And now the candle brand has gotten a lot of publicity and popular. And we do funny candles, like don't do meth in my bathroom, or socially awkward, or, all of those kinds of things. So
don't do meth in my bathroom. That is socially awkward.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean, it really all circles back to creating products that make people happy. That was my wife's vision, right? So, for the people that are listening to us, like, one thing that I would say to everybody is understand what your core competencies are. And so I'm a marketing driven person that is very interested in data and analytics, and my wife is a visionary, and so that is our partnership, right? Like, she designs these product ideas, I validate the product ideas with data and analytics, and then my team will launch these products on Amazon. But I sincerely, I don't take credit for any of these products. They're all her product ideas and her aspirations. So stay in your lane. Like, when people are trying to understand how can I do better in my business, understand what you're good at and understand what you're bad at, hire out the things you're bad at, and stay in your lane. And I think that's solid advice.
Yeah. I know a little bit about your story, Brian, because you and I even met each other for the first time was through Inner Circle, through Brandon Young's group there.
Right.
It's interesting to me hear your backgrounds. We do have similar backgrounds, right? I have a corporate and management consulting background. I turned private label. Now I run an agency, and I use all that stuff with the agency. I use that with all the client conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But learning e-commerce, understanding all the nuts and bolts, like, you've got Dolby, you've got that marine brand that you were referencing before, you've traveled to China, you kind of understood some of the broader stuff, like these new people, but like, where did you feel like your big learning curve was? Like, where you were like, whoa, shit, like, this is different than what I've done in the past. You'll lean on your skill sets, but like, what was the big lift for you when you were on your journey?
Right. Yeah. Like, back in my corporate world, like, it was all about, two-step distribution. We sold retailers, brick and mortar, and distributors are selling their brick and mortar. It's just a different distribution model. So what I learned early on in my career is that the world is really about distribution. Distribution is an interesting concept. Like, how do products get distributed? What is that path from supply chain through a distribution channel to end user consumer? And my big wake up call is that when I left that traditional corporate background and started getting involved in e-commerce in my wife's business, is you have opportunity to go right from manufacturing and be the distribution channel through Amazon. You can sell everybody all at once. I mean, I don't know how many people want to don't do meth in my bathroom candle, but if we were selling pet rocks or something, like, you can sell them all just like that, right? And so there's tremendous sales velocity opportunities, right? So even though I come from that corporate methodical background, Amazon or e-commerce is the Wild West. So I don't want to discourage anybody and say that you got to go to school and get a degree in finance to run your Amazon business, but you got to think about what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then you got to build that out. And so my big wake up call was when I saw her catalog of products, and I genuinely was curious, why does one sell better than another one? And that's where it gets complicated, because in her case, this was a beauty skincare. It was a makeup product. And I was fascinated with why this one sold so much. Why was this 15% of her sales? And what I found is that, the fancy word for that is all listing optimization, right? Like she had a better optimized product on Amazon, and she got the benefit from that. Being a chess player, I love chess. Chess is a game that has infinite possibilities. I view Amazon as the game of chess. It's how good are you at figuring out or scouting out the possibilities to find success or to find that checkmate or win the game, right? It's the same kind of thing. And so I love scouting. And so when I started working with my wife's account, I literally just took my gloves off and said, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? What if we optimize this? What if we change this picture? And I come from a visual arts background, and I quickly found that what we need to be on Amazon, and I think that this was true 5 years ago, and it's even more important today, is that we must be visual storytellers. We have to stop search. We have to win search. You have to stop the zombie scroll. Your product has to stand out. It has to provide value. And if you can't check those boxes, you're dead. It's just that simple. Like, you're dead. And I know Ian and I have talked about this, like when we've talked about product launches and stuff like that. If you can't check those boxes, save your money, man, and stay home.
Yeah.
So
no PPC budget's going to save you.
Right. And so like and you asked about my journey. And so we're in a place where, we've crossed that 10 million mark, and we found success in our brands. And I've stepped away a little bit from my team. I've started to help some people coach their sales and their scaling efforts. And what's interesting to me is it's become not just a management consulting thing, but it's either strategy or tactics. Like, which one do you want to focus on? Because tactically we need to do this, and strategy we need to do that. And when they come together, then you find success. Or it could be outsourcing people to find experts in listing optimization, or it could be rethinking the visual storytelling that your listing says. And so here's a gold nugget. And I don't really want to do live listing teardowns on this call, but what I say to people when I've listened to podcasts is, man, where is the gold? Here's the gold: is if you're going to audit your listing and you're going to ask, do I provide value, right? Or what is the value proposition? Or what does the pricing look like? Just ask yourself one thing. If your product was at the top of page 1, would you buy your product? Like, no bullshit. Does it stand out? Does it check the box? Would you pick your product? And before you say yes, ask 5 of your friends that don't know you that well. Right. Or ask 5 of your friends, friends that don't know you, right? Because sometimes we like to believe our own bullshit. Or, the cliche is, if you stand too close to the tree, all you see is the bark. All right.
And you know what I always hear? You know what I always hear, Brian, every freaking time I'm talking to a prospect that's like, I need your help, is, but our product's better than theirs. Every time. But our product's better than theirs. I'm like, no one cares, because your listing isn't.
Right. Totally.
Exactly.
Because we take the same approach, Brian. Like, we'll meet with people, whether they become clients or at all, we still do an audit, like a consult on the front end.
Yeah.
And the first piece before we talked about anything is, what makes your product different? Why do you think people buy it? And we have that conversation with them. Sometimes those answers are great, but to your point, it's not communicated very effectively. Like, we just had conversation this week with somebody who produces wood product for the kitchen, right? Being very generic about it. And there was no text on any of the images. Like, there's literally no selling going on. And it was just a bunch of like lifestyle images. Very typical. It's like, this is not uncommon that people are doing these types of things. But then now it's like, move into the other category where like, you are doing it, but are you doing it and is it resonating? Like, you're really like hitting the mark among all the other 4 people that are doing the same thing, right? They're all got their A game going on. How do you get yours to be the A+ game?
Right. So, I mean, I have this phrase that I share with our team, which is, I call it perfect execution. We have to aspire to have perfect execution, because here's fact. Fact is, you're competing with Fortune 500 companies that are using multiple ad agencies to visually communicate. That's fact. So if we're going to outsell them, it's not going to be on price. Like, fact, Chinese sellers can produce the product and distribute it through the supply chain to the end user probably cheaper than anybody can. So how are you going to stand out? You have to visually storytell. You have to value add. You are not going to win the low price game. The way you're going to win on Amazon is to stand out. And that really speaks to rethinking the way you look at things. And so that could be using high contrast dynamic images. That could be adding in value propositions within the product itself, like creating bundles, or that could be selling, a 3-pack, and that could be creating stuff that you can't live without. Like in our candle space, we're always looking like, what's the next best thing? What's trending? What would be fun?
Right.
So some of the successes that we found, like when Ukraine went to war, we had a Ukraine candle 48 hours later and it sold out. Right. So it can be moving fast to the market. Right. So when you put all these things together, that's how you're going to win on the Amazon game. But it really comes back to, like, in transparency, when you guys ask me on this call, what would you like to talk about? I really think it's the basics of marketing. Like, we have to talk less about hacks and we have to talk more about fundamentals. And the fundamentals is what's going to win on Amazon. That's really what it comes down to. And that's the people that I do coach, that's what we talk about. It's not hacky stuff. The hacky stuff's going to get you suspended. There's somebody who's always willing to try something and it's not going to work. It's going to give you short-term gain and long-term suspensions. Don't bother. Don't go down that road. Think about the basics that I shared earlier, which is, if you got to top of search, would you buy your product? Like, I can't overstate that enough. And if you answer no, then start breaking it down. Like, well, what's got to change? And here's the hard news: is sometimes that question it's just not the right product. And people don't like to hear that, because it's kind of like, talking about wives or girlfriends. Like, everybody married a beautiful woman, but if I told you she's not pretty, that's not good conversation to have. We might pick the wrong products, guys. Like, sometimes people ask me to do listing audits and I'm like, this product sucks, get rid of it. And they're like, oh man, that's not what we wanted to hear.
That's not the audit. Don't audit it like that.
Right.
You're fired, Brian, if you ever tell me that.
Right. And that you guys, that comes up because it doesn't check the boxes. It doesn't bring value. It doesn't stand out. It's just me too. The PPC is too expensive. You're not going to convert. And if you get granular like you guys do, and we look at the keyword sets and we talk about the low conversion, like you were just saying, Drew, when we pre-started this call about my product, like in some of these gifting keywords, they got high sessions, low conversions. Guess what? You're dead. So what we really need to do, and this is what we do, the advice that I would give your audience here is what I do with my team, is we architect products for success based on keyword relevancy that has high conversion. And I know that sounds like some cocktail talk there, but we are looking for opportunities on keywords that have high conversion that could be highly relevant to our product idea. That is a winning product on Amazon. And then we visually execute the slide decks, the EVC, the technical aspects of a listing. So what we end up with is we have something that looks good, brings value, and you would choose if you were at the top of page 1. And guess what? Those products typically get to the top of page 1 without any of the hacky stuff. They will get there. So that's how we do it. And I tell you, a lot of people ask me directly, like, hey, how do I choose product? That's how you choose a product. Start with the keywords.
Yeah.
I have no problem.
It sounds so boring, Brian. It sounds so fundamental.
Well, and so that, Drew, I mean, that speaks to, it speaks to, like, guys, this is not a passive income business. This is a lot of effort business. I think that people underestimate, and I think they do this because they see the Facebook Lambo guys saying, like, done for you this and that. And that all sounds good. And it's the American dream to make lots of money and do nothing. I get it. But that's not what this business is. If you talk to the people that are in my circles, we might work part-time, but there's 24 hours a day in the day. So we're working 12 of them. All right. So there's a lot of effort that goes into this, and you can get very granular when we start talking about keywords and talk about rising keywords. And I know, on your agency side, you guys are looking at a lot of that stuff. And so
Yep.
really, if, I guess the plug that I would have for you guys is that if people are looking at starting an Amazon business and they're not experts in keyword analysis, you need to be working with an agency that understands conversion and is going to measure on conversion. Like one of the gripes that I have with PPC is when I look at PPC, the first thing I look at is, well, how are you doing on branded search versus non-branded search? Like it's really easy to convert and have good ACOS and good metrics, some of the technical stuff on branded search, but it's not so easy to convert well and have good conversion on non-branded search. And so how much of your search is branded, or how much of your conversion is branded based or non-branded based, right? And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir, Drew, on this stuff because
Yes, you are.
you guys do a lot of this, but people need to think about it like, hey, what's really working, right? And another thing too, this is an analysis that we did on one of our products, and I think you guys would get a kick out of this. We've got a product that is doing over 200 units a day in the beauty space. Fantastic. All right. And we're looking at the pricing structure, and we're looking at our PPC, and we're using software to analyze what the spend is. We're automating the PPC. We're doing all this technical stuff that you guys do. And guess what conclusion we came to? We came to the conclusion that we are buying traffic and buying conversions. And if we run less PPC, we are making a lot more money on the product. So it's not really stop running PPC. It's which keywords are we going to run PPC on? And so,
Right.
We were also looking at this and saying, hey, if we stop running PPC, the spend was about $500 a day on this product. And we said, well, what happens if we stop running PPC and we don't get those conversions, and we're going to start going down page one, and then it's going to be a death spiral? That's possible. But what we found out is that was not the reality. The reality is that we were just cannibalizing our organic sales with PPC sales. So we were paying for the traffic instead of getting the free traffic. Mm-hmm. And so by re-optimizing and kind of looking at this on a keyword basis, we took our spend down. I mean, you guys will kind of chuckle here. We took our spend down from $500 a day to about $60 to $70 a day. And we're focusing it on very long tail keywords that we don't have good conversion rate on that are relevant. And we're putting $400 extra a day into the net profit or the bottom line. And that looks good on the P&L at the end of the month. So specifically, like I'll share the real data here. We went from making about $12,000 to $14,000 of net profit up to $26,000 of net profit just by making those PPC changes. So I'm not advocating cut PPC. I mean, and I know I'm preaching to the choir because you guys do this, but I'm talking about run smart PPC or work with an agency that can understand the implications of PPC to your bottom line. Because I talk to people all the time, and they do this Amazon business, and they're like, but I didn't make any money. Like, well, I can pick better hobbies. Like, let's go golfing, or, let's go hiking. Like, those are better hobbies, right? So, if it's not a hobby and it's a business, you got to get smart about the business, and you got to keep your eye on the bottom line, and PPC can chew that up. So that's what I see there.
Yeah. We just talked with a seller this week about a really large one who's in the baby space, and they did this. They turned PPC off totally. I'm not talking about the trimming component that you're describing. They turned it off entirely for 30 days. And they turned it back on, but they ended up coming to the same conclusion you did, that they need to be playing on certain keywords because strategically they've lost organic rank. They didn't lose anything on that other tranche. And it was significant. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars for them to make this change. They were pretty big. What a risky move, right? They're number one.
Right. No, it is. Honestly, it's kind of terrifying, because what I'm talking about is one of our hero products, and we can't afford to lose. Like, this is back to the business. Like, we have containers of this stuff inbound. Like, we have schedules planned of purchases. So we can't afford to just, drop our unit velocity by 50%, or we're going to create huge cash flow problems for the company. Right. So that's a big deal. Like, here's another nugget for your audience. And and I'll share, we haven't talked about this previously, so I'll just throw this at you guys, is I believe that no matter what our best efforts are, whether we're good or not at listing optimization, I believe that Amazon associates our product with certain relevancy, with certain keyword sets, and that's how they see our product. So if we were to use the search query performance data and analyze which keywords we are converting at higher than the market, and we run PPC to those, I have found that we have super good results, because guess what? Those are the keywords Amazon already thinks we're relevant for. So we step on the gas for those, and then we get very methodical about what keywords we're not converting for the market. And we don't just throw PPC dollars at it, but we will consider running PPC on those keywords if we're going to, we'll say, visually optimize our listing to address relevancy concerns with those keywords. And so really the kind of the short nugget that I would say for your audience is pull your data, look at your data, and step on the gas with PPC that you're outperforming the market on, because those are the keywords Amazon is telling you that you're doing better on. So step on the gas and watch what happens. And so that's kind of been my 2023 takeaway.
We've been toying around with talking about the search query performance data, because that's been a big deal in the last year, right? Them providing that data, taking that plus organic rank plus the search term impression rank to understand, like, now you've got the foot on the gas, but how much, and when do you need to pull out, when do you need to flutter it, right?
Yeah.
And figuring those things out. The one thing that you're sharing, though, that's not like, we do this, but it's not really part of this like cohesive kind of view, is creating cohorts of keywords that need to be pulled out to see how that affects things. Right?
Yeah, it's big. It really is big.
Too, right? That's just hard to do. That's there's a lot of data management in that stuff. But to your point,
I have two questions before we go more and more. I have two questions that are kind of back. So I wanted to get.
I'll stop nerding out. I'll stop.
And I'm asking as a viewer, because you gave some beautiful nuggets about product research. On that product research subject, what cost of goods do you factor in versus the average retail price? Like, how do you know, okay, am I getting this product at a fair market price versus the competition?
Easy.
And is that a factor in your decision?
Yes, it's a huge factor in my decision. And the easy, straightforward answer is 4x.
So 25% of retail.
If you can hit 4 to 5x, you're doing great. If it's less than 4x, you better start thinking about, do you really want to do this product? And when I say like of retail, this goes back to the question that we said, would you pick me if I was at the top of page 1? And price plays a role in that. So if your cost of goods are too high and it forces you above what the market landscape is, you're also dead. I don't care if PPC is going to get you to the top of search. So you need to ask yourself, what is the landscape of the product? And I'll give you a kind of a sad story here, and I'll make it brief. I got contacted by a seller that said, hey, I've seen some of your products. I know that you've had success. I wanted to ask you about something that I'm doing. I'll pay it forward. Sure. Shoot. What is it? Hey, I paid this guy $40,000 to teach me Amazon, one of these Lambo guys, and he's even going to sell me the product, and he's going to help me launch it. And I just wanted to ask you, is this a good deal? To which I said, I think you're crazy paying $40,000, but tell me what the product is. The product is a vitamin C serum, 1 ounce jar that she's going to buy from him for $28, and he wants her to retail it for $50. And I said, interesting, because we actually manufacture that product for about $1.70. So who's making the money here? Is it you or is it him? Because I can tell you, you're not going to make any money, because for you to 4 or 5x this, you need to be selling it at $100 or plus, and that's not the market. The market on a vitamin C serum is, and you guys go to Amazon and pull up vitamin C serum,
15 to 20 bucks.
It's about 20 bucks, right? Yeah. So like to your point, Ian, yes, you need to understand what the cost of goods is, and you need to shoot for that 4, but you also need to understand what the landscape is, and that was her mistake. And she was crushed when I told her that. I'm like, don't do it.
I would be too.
Just stop. Like, you're never going to sell these. Like, but he's charging you more than the retail landscape shows. And
Mhm.
this kind of goes back to those fundamentals. Like, well, you can use software like Data Dive or any of these things to look at what the landscape and the average price is, but it comes back to data and analytics. So I took it a step further for her and said, well, what are the keywords that you think that are going to bring your sales in? She had no idea. So we need to understand the cost metrics. What's the cost of goods? What's the markup factor? Make it 4X, guys. And then understand what are the keyword sets that we're going to go for and what those cohorts are, like Drew's talking about, and ask ourselves, can we do this? And I'm just going to bottom line it and say vitamin C serum is a bad idea for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
For anyone listening to this call, do not launch vitamin C serum. That market has sailed. Now, what about the subject of skill set? You know, you and Drew have a lot in common where you're very data-driven guys. And I'm actually noticing that there's a lot of nerds in the space, and that's a good thing. That's a compliment. Guys who can look at data and make decisions based on data. What would you say is the most common skill set that you've seen in actual, not luck, but successful Amazon entrepreneurs who can repeat it instead of just do it one time lucky?
It is. I just had a conversation about this, and to answer your question, that is to be able to read a P&L, to be able to read a balance sheet, to understand inventory. Like, let's think about it this way. There's lots of businesses out there, but Amazon is an inventory business. So I talk to high-level sellers all the time that don't understand the concept of what an inventory turn is. So if I were to say my inventory turns 6 times a year, what does that mean? They don't know. That's fun. So is that fundamental accounting? Yeah, it is. In finance? Yeah, it is. But what we need is we need a skill set of business experience to be successful at this. So when people are looking at whether we're talking about the PPC space or the inventory space or the launching product phase or any of these different aspects of the business, we have to be able to have good business sense. And so what I would tell people is if you want to launch an Amazon business, I'm not saying you got to go to a 4-year university and get a degree in accounting or finance, but go take a course. Go learn how to read a balance sheet. Learn to read a profit and loss statement. Understand inventory turns. Understand these things because they have very real implications. So one of the funny stories that I'll share with you when I met my wife is she had this huge warehouse. She had no idea how much inventory she had in there. Well, guess what? In this day now, she'd probably kill me because I can't remember how many years we've been married. 6 years, I think. And we count that inventory twice a month. Like, it's counted. There is in and there's out. And we're measuring the gross inventory level that we have in the warehouse because that is our cash that's sitting in the warehouse. And we don't just count it in our warehouse. We're counting the POs that are placed. We're counting the raw goods because we manufacture. We're counting the finished goods in our warehouse and counting the finished goods at Amazon. And guess what? That spells a big dollar amount that greatly affects your balance sheet or your available cash to purchase. So this sounds like a bunch of complicated stuff, right? But there's great ways that you can go out and learn this stuff. Go volunteer to help another seller and learn their business, right? Or go take the 4-day MBA program and learn business things. So that's how I'd answer that question. It's complicated, but those are the people that are the rinse and repeat and are successful because Amazon has gotten harder. It's not 2012, 2015 land. And we're competing against major corporations that use big time talent to execute their Amazon strategy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Talking about the tactical stuff on the Amazon, which is what we're just talking about, is like what's working on Amazon. Your response is stick with the fundamentals. Your answer to what are the skill sets, fundamentals, private, P&L, balance sheet, inventory turns. You've got to understand your business, and the people that can do that and can think like that can manage their business.
Yeah, but unfortunately, those are not the sexy answers. Like if this is the black hat session of, how to hack Amazon, that's more fun stuff to talk about. But the reality is that I see so many people headed out of business right now And everybody's excuse is Amazon's hard. Well, guess what? My business is up 40% over last year. And it gets harder with the more zeros that we start adding to our sales.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that notion, I reject that notion. And what I suggest politely is they don't understand those business fundamentals that we just discussed. And so
Right.
that's why they're headed out of business, or they're out of cash, or they can't launch product. And those are all real concerns that my business has. Like, make no mistake about it, we have those concerns as well, but we're hyper focused on how do we manage our business. And if we have to, we will slow down our product launches. Like, one of the conversations that I had a week ago with my wife is that our launch schedule is too aggressive. We can't afford it. It is as simple as that. We need to slow it down and we need to extend. Now, we're talking about launching between 30 and 40 different products, and that's a lot. And we will probably launch 25 of those products this year, but 40 is too much financially. It doesn't matter how good the ideas are. They're great ideas. So what? We can't afford it. So we need to slow it down, and we need to, I've always been a scuba diver, and I say we plan our dive and we dive our plan. And that's what we do with our business. And that's what you should be doing with your business as well, is creating that plan and diving it.
So the last X factor is your wife. She is the visionary, like you said. She comes up with the brilliant ideas. So let's say we have a Brian that's working in our business, and he can look at a P&L balance sheet, he can count inventory. But what if you don't have a really good visionary that can't actually come up with beautiful packaging ideas? That's a huge aspect I think we should cover before we end, is that marketing aspect.
The marketing is hard. That's what sets us apart. I've been lucky enough to be involved in marketing my whole life. If that's the case, then you got to hire it out, or you got to bring in a partner, and you have to outsource it. So my advice on outsourcing is be careful who you outsource to, because you might not like the results there. All right. But we have to kind of segment or silo each one of these parts of the business. And if that area that's weak is the marketing, then go hire an agency to give you great ideas, or go ask ChatGPT to organize it. Like, I'll share with this with you. I'm hiring a position, and I thought, okay, let me do this. And I hired a headhunter, and they wanted me to describe the whole position. I'm like, oh man, this is going to take me like 4 hours to write all this out. And I literally asked ChatGPT to organize a mid-level marketing, a visual marketing person. And I was shocked. It did it in about 30 seconds. And I literally copied and pasted and put it in there and went, have a nice day. Find me that person. Okay. So there's working smart aspects. Okay. But if you have to find those people, outsource it. They're like another kind of gold nugget alert. There is fantastic people in Europe that work at very reasonable wages that have amazing skill sets that can help, whether it's a graphic designer, or if it's a brand manager, or if it's a customer service person. They're willing to work at very reasonable monthly wages compared to that same qualified person in the United States. Or another area would be Costa Rica. I'm seeing a lot of people hire people in Costa Rica. And this is not a question of like, how cheap can we hire somebody? But if we have a set budget of dollars that we can fill these roles with, we can find more value in those markets than you can hiring somebody right down the street. And so I've seen success with hires, especially out of Europe right now.
Yeah.
And that's how you can answer that question Ian's asking.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and on that point about the outsourcing, like for us, what we'll do is we do the same thing, right? We kind of have like a budget in mind in terms of like what we're willing to spend. And when you look to the US, it's pretty expensive. And there's agencies in the US that's what they do. Their angle is even that we hire US based talent. But if you have that same budget, like what could you get in another location? And for us, it's South America. We get amazing talent. 30% off, right? 30% cheaper. And it's amazing. It's an amazing compensation for those individuals, and we get an incredible performance out of it. And Ian and I talk about this from time to time, but like our baseline for Argentina, Brazil, we're looking at McKinsey as the baseline for what the salaries need to be. And then we go get the best talent to bring into the group. So
yeah,
it works.
Fantastic.
It works.
It really, like, as we talk about like listing optimization and all this other stuff, we're flipping the script and we're talking about organizational efficiencies. So if you can get more value for that same dollar, you'd be remiss not to do that. And that's, I think that's what we've got to look at those things, because we've got rising in costs, we've got inflations, business is getting more expensive every year. So work smarter, not harder. And that, I think your South America is an example of that.
Yeah, and I think it's one part, right? The other piece of it is, how are you structuring your company where you're putting the horsepower and paying for that? And like in management consulting, we have this concept called leverage, where it's where's the split between the high value employee that can like be strategic and really get shit done and lead the group, and then backing that up with really good talent, but that's a lot less expensive, right? And finding that balance. It's not just going to Philippines, it's not just going to South America, it's not just going to Europe. It's like, how are you structuring that in a way so that you're still getting all of this great value out of it and putting the right dollar in the right place?
It speaks to what I said earlier, perfect execution. And that's the mantra that my team uses on how are we going to execute perfectly, and how are we set up structurally to do that execution. And the way I answer that question is we brought in full-time graphic designer, full-time brand manager, full-time PPC person. And then it's backed up with myself, right? So the question is how do we go to scale if we're going to launch 20 to 40 products? Like, how are we going to do all that? How's it going to get through? We have to create SOPs that we vet the ideas, we structure the ideas, we manufacture our own ideas, and then we execute on the marketing of those ideas. And so I could say that it's super complicated. It's not. It's just perfect execution, and it's visually storytelling. That's what you want to focus on. And so that leverage piece that you're talking about is, you need to find people that have good skill sets. And this is something that we have gone through time and time again. And we brought in people that we thought were really good. But then as your company levels up and goes higher and higher, the demands on those people are higher and higher. And so that's where you have to constantly reevaluate, like, are we getting the job done right? Or do we need to rethink things? And when you need to rethink things, my nugget is, go to South America like you guys did, or go to Europe like many do, and bring in those people. And I think you'll be really surprised, because I think entrepreneurs, oftentimes we get paralysis. And, we've all had data paralysis. Like PPC is one of those things, like, hey, here's all the things we could do, but what should we do? Or search query performance data. It's a ton of data. But what are the actionable insights in there? Like, data paralysis is a real thing. But if you bring in people from the outside that have really good skill sets that you can afford, you can do amazing things. So that's the action there. Like, if you don't think you have the skill set to do it, marketing, finance, budgets, inventory, P&L, go source it out. Those are the people, back to what Ian was saying, those are the people that pull those triggers and bring that leverage in, that can rinse and repeat and can find success in growing a business on Amazon. That's how it all comes together, I think.
Guys, really quick, just to not be included in the video, I got to run because I got to actually have a client call here at the top of the hour.
All good.
All right,
we can kill it.
No problem. Yeah, let's kill it. So Brian, thank you so much. Lots of nuggets, as you said. And I think the motto of the story is, people just need to get their big boy pants on and, actually run a business.
Yeah.
Run an actual business.
Yeah. I love the conversation, Brian. Your philosophy and my philosophy are very similar.
It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy here, guys. I'm telling you, 30% of MDS will not be here next year. I see them in you guys aren't in that group. I mean, you got the Brandon Young group that's got more junior guys in there, and you got the MDS that's got more high-level guys. Fucking high-level guys are going to be gone too. It really is. It's learn to run a business or fail.
Learn to run a business or fail.
Yeah,
right,
that's my takeaway.
Brian,
all right.
thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
It was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
Always.